Aboriginal station workers used to be paid in rocks, which acted as coupons for things like tea, sugar and flour. At the end of 2023, the government agreed to pay back stolen wages at a settlement of over $180 million. And it was Mervyn Street and the history that prompted this. He was born under a tree in Louisa Downs stations, either in the 1940s or the 1950s in the Kimberley region. And it was Mervyn's dad that was paid in black pennies, the rocks that acted as coupons for things like tea, sugar and flour. Both of his parents worked on the same cattle station in the centre of Western Australia's Kimberley region for most of their lives, but they never earned a wage. Let's take a look back to 40 years now, when Aboriginal people were not only being paid at the cattle stations, but also owned them. This is Billiluna, a small Aboriginal community which was established in 1979 after the cattle station was purchased by the Aboriginal Land Fund Commissions and the construction of houses and schools began in that year. So the pastoral lease was purchased for $275,000. At the time, the government made it really difficult to transfer pastoral properties to Aboriginal people. The chairman of the Land Fund Commission, Dr. Charles Rowley, really backed these Aboriginal-owned cattle stations and was well familiar with opposition from the government.
I think what ought to be taken into account is that this place has become the home of perhaps a couple of hundred people.
And that's the most important thing?
To me, it's the most important thing.
But then there's taxpayers' money going into this, and I think that's where you'll get a lot of your opposition from, surely.
I would say that the taxpayers' money that goes into the setting up of first a pastoral operation and secondly a village away from the appalling conditions that you get around towns like Kununurra, Fitzroy Crossing, Halls Creek, etc., is, even from the point of view of economic management, money very well spent.
Land Fund Commissions did a report and said that in the climate of race relations, any purchase for Aboriginal people might not be in favour of the opposition. The Queensland government even accused the Aboriginal Land Fund Commissions of trying to create a black state across the north. Now, the reporter at the time does press Dr. Charles about the state that the Aboriginal mob were living in, particularly in these shacks.
But are the conditions on these properties so much better than the conditions at Kununurra and Wyndham? And
I think so.
But you've seen the shanties at Billiluna, you've seen the way...
But those shanties are at least the kind of bush shelters that people are used to working in stock camps.
But at the time, he stressed the importance of the local mob having the right and ownership to live on their land.
This land is their own land. These people know how to live in what seem to us very rough ways in this kind of country.
A few times a year, an Adelaide pastoral consultant, John Eadie, would visit these stations to check in.
Well, a lot of the day-to-day running of the station is done without any European assistance. I come here about 6 times a year and spend 2 or 3 or 4 days.
But are you telling them what to do, or do they already know?
They know how to do all the day-to-day activities of running the station, and they know as well as we do which cattle should be mustered and drafting of cattle for the meatworks and that sort of thing. They do very competently.
Who actually has financial control of this property? Is it you?
We organise the payment of accounts and the banking of money. All of the financial aspects of administration are discussed with them, and most of the management decisions are made in consultation with those directors.
John states there was still support from white people on these stations, with things like the bookwork and telegrams. And a local stockman even backed that scenario, but did hope that more Aboriginal people could come along to work on these stations.
We need a bit of help with the governments at this stage. It's a lot of work to do this property to get it going, really.
Lots of white people here like John Eadie. Now, do you always need their help, or can you operate without them, do you think, sometimes?
So we could easily, but we would like to get young couple to run our properties, really, with their books works and operating telegrams and so on.
Is that the problem at the moment?
Yeah, that's the problem at the moment.
As far as actually running the station, the pastoral part of it, you're quite okay?
Yeah, the pastoral part of it is quite okay to run for us. Actually, what we're looking into these days is to get, the original people like us, try and get it to run these books works and operating the telegrams and so on.
So have a couple of Aboriginal people to do all that work?
Yeah.
Important to note, it was only a bit over a decade earlier that Aboriginal station workers were having their wages stolen. But schools at the time were being established, and the reporter did go on to note that hopefully it would be these students that go on to take over the admin side of the cattle stations.
It's from schools like this one on Nookambah that the people who'll know about banking and about accounting will one day come.
The government still supported the station financially during the quiet period, for example, to help build more infrastructure. Again, the opposition not really a fan of taxpayers' money being used, but the people supporting this idea saw it as an investment to get these particular communities self-sufficient. Even that station in particular brought in $94,000 worth of cattle sales in one of its first years as a business. It's an interesting part of history to look back at, but one of the main takeaways is that regardless of bookwork, pastoral leases, money and so on, the real focus seemed to be that Aboriginal people were living on their land, on country.
We need to show the white people how Aboriginal people can run the station.
Is it really important for the people on Nookambah to actually have a pastoral lease, or is it just important for you to be living on the land?
We don't worry about really this pastoral list, but we really interesting to very important to land.
The land is the most important.
Land is very important for the people.
Well, what did you mean when you said you don't really worry much about the pastoral leases?
Well, just looking at that map, there's fences and things like this, but that doesn't mean anything to us. But we would say that the people been to come back to Nookambah in their own secret site or burial ground. We must say that this is land for the Aboriginal people.
The main thing is to actually have the land.
Yeah.